All right, hello everybody. Let's see, we have one more minute here. We'll give everybody another minute to join. In the meantime, if you would like to put your name in the chat and where you're calling from, and later on as we go along the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to put those in there as well into the chat. And hopefully we'll by the end of it, we'll get to your question. If not, then we'll reach out via email or afterwards. We'll also amend the slide deck. We'll make that available to everybody, and we'll have some Q&A at the very end. And so we'll add those that information in there. Okay, it's the bottom of the hour, so let's get started. I'm super excited to have everybody join us today, this morning or this afternoon, depending on where you're calling in from, I suppose. My name is Chris Mueller. I'm the Chief Grants Officer for BW&CO. And I'll be doing the presentation today with together with Dr. Samira Pachangam, who is one of our senior strategists and grant consultants, and she also happens to be a part-time project manager. And together we'd like to tell you about this fantastic opportunity that just opened up not too long ago. I think just this last month, September 24th, I believe, is the date. On how to win 10 million or more, 10 million minimum, for R&D projects for the new CHIPS Act that was just released. And then how we, as a company, BW&CO, can possibly help you in that regard. And that is, I have to mention, 10 million non-dilutive funding. So that means that you will get to keep that. That's not something that you have to return. It's not a loan. It's one of the biggest investments that the US government has ever made into the chips industry. And so for that, we're very excited to tell you more about this. So apologize. Real quick, the agenda then. Here you can see on the left-hand side, this is part of the NIST, the National Institute of Standards, which falls under the US Department of Commerce. And it is brought out by the CHIPS Research and Development Office, the CRDO. They released the BAA, Broad Agency Announcement. Like many of the other granting agencies, there's 11 total, I think, that put out grants in the government. And you can see on the left-hand side the number there if you want to search for that particular BAA. Real quick, the agenda then is for us to give you a quick overview of what the CHIPS Act is all about that was just released this year, the BAA in particular, then talk about technical priorities. What are they looking for? What can you apply for? The eligibility, who's eligible, can you apply for it? And it's just a general funding overview. And then the application process and what's the requirement there in order to apply. How do you go about applying for this, these $10 million plus? And then very important, the review and award criteria. We always want to lead our proposal writing with that in mind. We've got to know what the reviewers are looking for, basically. And then a quick example, a couple of examples on what you can use the funds for. I'm sure you have your own ideas, just to give you an example, though. And then we'll close out with a little bit more about BW&CO and how we can help you out in this regard if you're interested. And hopefully we'll have some Q&A, time for Q&A towards the very end. It's a full program, so let's, without further ado, let's get started. And Samira is going to take it from here.
Thank you, Christian, and thank you everyone for joining. So what's this CHIPS Act? And as you all know, it was released first in 2022, and it was a 400-page bill. You know, we don't want you to read the whole thing. That's why we are here. So the CHIPS Act, when it was signed in 2022, it was a $50 billion bill. And it had two arms, one from the program office and one for the R&D. So until July 2025, the program office has funded 32 projects, very big projects, upwards of 150 million. Some of them are in 700 million. And those were primarily from the program office, which has spent about 32 billion up to date. And they still have about 7 billion to cater to. But there is this $11 billion that is exclusive for R&D projects. And that is what this new BAA is all about. It is exclusively for R&D purposes, any research, prototyping, and commercial solutions that ultimately advance the microelectronics and the semiconductor industry in the US. And as you can see in the following slides, some of these, Christian, next slide, please. So we'll get to the strategic focus areas. I just wanted to give you a brief overview of who was funded. Christian, if we go just to the next slide and then come back to this. So these were some of the big companies that were funded: Samsung, and then Wolfspeed and C. These were either manufacturing facilities or fabless, which helped assemble semiconductor, pieces together in the US. But, when we look at this, we may think, oh, these are big companies. What am I doing here? And that's where we want to look at the top 6 focus areas for this R&D purposes. Christian, previous slide. And the topic areas that the R&D Act is covering are pretty broad: advanced semiconductor materials, AI, quantum, biotechnology, and standards that will be the new standards for the NIST. So when we say advanced semiconductor materials or AI, they all ultimately want to be catering to the semiconductor industry. It could be, new lithographic processes or new materials or packaging, even bioelectronics like chips embedded in human systems. So all of these would be covered under this R&D BAA. Christian, next. Yep. And who's eligible? Everybody is eligible: small businesses, non-profits, and even higher education institutions. And even foreign companies are allowed, as long as it's not from prohibited nations, and they could be a sub-awardee in this case. So the primary applicant would be a domestic business with a foreign component as a sub-awardee. As an individual, as an unincorporated sole proprietor, you would not be eligible. And this is not a traditional, SBIR or a small business grant or a contract. This is more like an other transaction agreement where you sign an agreement with the NIST. And like Christian mentioned, the minimum is a $10 million project, and it is up to 5 years. Good thing is there is no cost share. So you will not be evaluated based on how much you're contributing or how much you can put in cash or in kind. So no cost share. And then one of the things that the NIST is looking for in specific to this grant is the return on investment. Christian will talk more about it, but how much is the department getting out of this, out of funding? What is their profit? What is their benefit? And then it is a continuous open BAA until 2029. But we always say, first come, first serve. The sooner you apply, the better it is. We don't want to wait until 2029 or 2028 when the funds dry up. Plan ahead, start ahead, and do it now. So what's the application pathway? Very briefly, you will have to put in a 5-page pre-application or a white paper, as you would say. And then they evaluate your pre-application, and either you get a rejection or an invitation to do the full application. And that full application or the pre-negotiation package is extensive. It's about 30 pages, and only those highly responsive white papers and which are of high merit will be invited. And without a white paper and without an invitation, you cannot do the full application. And when you submit the pre-application, what can you submit and how many can you submit? You can submit multiple white papers or multiple pre-applications as long as they do not overlap in scope and as long as you are aligned with the agency's interests. So they have to be aligned with the national security and economic security of the semiconductor industry and the advanced microelectronics industry. It should be highly scientific and technical and innovative. So once this pre-application goes in, what is your timeline? What are you looking at? Probably about 6 to 9 months at the most for the entire process, from your pre-application to the time that you get a full yes to the funding. Next
Yeah,
slide, please.
just to follow up there on what Samira said before we head to the evaluation criteria, which are very important. The timeline is rather quick in terms of this being in other transaction agreements. So Samira mentioned that, alluded to that earlier. This is special in the sense that certain restrictions and regulations don't apply, so it goes much faster. One of them being the federal acquisition regulations. The FAR clauses do not apply. Usually for government contracts that are of this size, anything over 2 million, 1 to 2 million, usually require these clauses. And for this particular type of contract vehicle, they don't apply. It's also much more flexible in the sense that you can negotiate more so than a standard grant. Usually a standard grant is what you just accept. You either accept it or you don't. There's very little room to negotiate. With these, there's ample room to negotiate for IP and data rights. I think Samira mentioned earlier that there's a return of investment expected that is to be negotiated during the contract negotiations. So we don't necessarily have to talk about it in the proposal itself as we create this, but the government does potentially want some sort of a return of investment, whether or not that's IP rights or royalties, etc. And all that is to be negotiated. So that's something to keep in mind. But that's the beauty of one of these other transaction agreements. It's flexible in that regard. Talking about the evaluation criteria, as mentioned earlier, those are very important in the sense that we want to write the proposal with that in mind from the onset. The most important one, the greatest weight is placed on the national and economic security. And what that means is the relevant language from the solicitation here is highlighted in red. It's the impact needs to be consistent with the relevant strategic goals and published administration strategies and policies. And what are those strategies and policies, you ask? These are listed right here under A. So U.S. leadership needs to be strengthened in the semiconductor technology areas. Growing domestic workforce is of high interest. Increasing supply chain resiliency in this day and age is very, very important. And then generally accelerating commercialization and innovations in areas such as AI, quantum, and biotechnology are highly regarded as well. Now, you don't have to meet all of them, but the more boxes you tick, the better, of course. That's the highest graded, valued, weighted evaluation criteria, but then we have the other ones down here listed as well. So scientific merit, scientific and technical merit, it has to be innovative, it has to be novel, of course, and you have to have a clear defined approach. There, the imperative language reads whether the project duplicates other projects funded by the department or other federal agencies. So for that, it behooves us to do a little research. There's several ways in which we can do that. I've listed 2 down here in the sub-bullet where you can go online and do some research on past awards using keywords to see whether or not there's anything similar. And so you want to distinguish yourself. You want to make sure that your proposal is novel in that regard. Project feasibility, it has to have obviously a realistic schedule. The schedule, I think we mentioned, is up to 5 years. So that's the maximum. These will be quantized in the sense that there'll be gates that you'll have to go through most likely every year that you have to pass in order to be releasing additional funds. So additional funds will be released as you go and meet certain milestones. And so you have to build a realistic schedule. And of course, a realistic cost. Cost has to be above 10 million. Sabrina mentioned somewhere on the order of 10 to 150 million is feasible. Most of them will probably end up in the several digits, in the double digits in terms of 20, 30 million, something like that. But of course, it has to be commensurate with the scope proposed. There's reviewers that know exactly what it costs to do a certain amount of work. And so we got to be cognizant of that. Rate agreements, if we have indirect rates, which we all should have, then of course we want to propose those as well. It's always good to have to be a DCAA approved or audited if that's possible. Otherwise, 2 years of direct rates as per your timekeeping, your schedules in the financials that you keep for your company. You can supply those, and those would suffice as well. And then, of course, you got to have the capable team. We're talking about how to build a team. We can help with that. And also risk mitigation. So you got to look at your risks. What are the risks? We want to reduce the risk. We want to identify the risks, and then find plausible pathways to reduce those as well. Commercial viability, path to market, very, very important. These are always dual use. They want you to succeed, obviously, on the commercial sector. So we got to make sure that we do our due diligence. Market and competitor analysis has to be done. Demand validation is the demand for your technology, of course. Current and future fundraising plans, if they exist. We want to talk about those. That's a great sign that there is demand for your technology. And adoption by commercial and defense partners, if you have anybody lined up. That's of course fantastic. Those lead into letters of interest from possible potential future users. Return of investment potential, that's your return of investment, as mentioned. So it's not what you have to negotiate once the contract is awarded. We can help with that as well during contract negotiations. Will lead you all the way from A to Z in the proposal writing and the contract award. But the return of investment has to be clearly articulated, because the imperative word here is efficient use of taxpayer dollars, basically. So that's the ultimate line there. And then financial viability, at last, they want to know whether or not, of course, your company is healthy, if you have sound financial practices. And let me see, this expenditures, if you have any capital expenditures that are planned, are those reasonable going forward? And do they fit in? So I spent quite a bit of time on these evaluation criteria because they're very, very important. Again, you build your proposal around these criteria because that's what the reviewers will use to evaluate your proposal going forward. This is just a quick example of how the funds may be used. For example, if you have a bioelectronics project, let's say it's a low TRL, you come in at a TRL 4 level. So TRL stands for test readiness level. That means at a TRL 4, you've done some bench testing. You have not evaluated under relevant conditions, just under laboratory conditions. And so there's still some early stage risks, high risk, high reward. And you want to take that all the way to pre-manufacturing, just prior to mass manufacturing, basically, for all the way up to 7 or 8, TRL 7 or 8, which is qualification units. And so you can see here in the bullets what you can do: miniaturization, the A6 packaging in year 1, followed by year 2, some testing, animal testing and supply chain validation, perhaps for year 2, some pilot studies, FDA pre-submission activities, and then developing, not executing, but developing your commercial plan and your workforce training packages, for example. So this is an example of an earlier stage, higher risk one, or you might come in at a TRL 6, a little bit higher. So you've done your due diligence, you have some prototype developed and tested under relevant conditions, and you want to bring it all the way to market, so all the way to commercialization. And so the steps listed here show you some possible ways that you can do that, ending up in pilot studies, which are your initial test sets, your initial tests that you run pre-commercialization, and then of course commercialization, mass production at the very end. Just some ideas. So basically there's a big range for how you can utilize these funds. Okay, let's see. In terms of, we say wait before you start writing. I would suggest don't wait, start writing. Even though we say wait, In essence, even though the government is shut down, now is the time to head out there and put these in, create the white papers that Samira mentioned earlier. It's only 5 pages. Get ready to submit it. Perhaps not submit right now while the government is shut down, although the sam.gov is still open. As far as we know, we can still submit proposals through that website. You might not get the response that you usually get that you have submitted something. But we definitely don't want to wait. This is a large share. So Samir mentioned 11 billion with a B, so that's a lot. But then again, it goes fast when you have projects that are 10 to 150 million a piece. And so we don't want to wait on this. We want to do it now. We want to contact, most importantly, you want to establish contact with the TPOCs, with the directors of the CHIPS department. So on the right-hand side over here, you see the subject area and the point of contacts for you that you can reach out to with programmatic or technical questions. Reach out to the CHIPS department, make yourself known, put your foot out there, so to speak, and start establishing a relationship. Relationships are key in everything that we do in terms of grant writing. And then there's another address there for the grants.gov where you actually submit those proposals. There's technical assistance if you need that. Email and phone numbers are listed there as well. If you would like to reach out to us, feel free to do so. I have those email addresses listed over there for Samira and myself, as well as our business development director, Robert, who will also have, I believe, somewhere in the chat or somewhere we'll have a link to his calendar. So you can sign up on his calendar to make sure he has the time, because he usually gets booked pretty fast. There's registration, so there's lots of portals that you have to visit and establish. Some of them are listed here: sam.gov, grants.gov, and some other ones that you need to create. There's different levels of the registrations. For sam.gov, for example, there's 3 different types of levels. So you got to make sure that you have the right type, that you get registered properly there. We have support in that, so we have an entire department that will help out in that regard if you're interested in doing all that. I'm glad I don't have to do that, because sometimes that's a bit pain in the rear if you've ever dealt with the government portals. I mentioned established collaborations. It's important. Rather connections with the CHIPS department, but also establishing collaborations. So anybody, in essence, when you're creating a proposal for a particular project, you want to make sure that you have a subject matter expert in place for each and every technology vertical that your technology touches. And if you don't have that in the company, then you can collaborate with people outside the company, so subcontractors. Samir mentioned earlier that the company itself needs to be US based, so it needs to be a US established company, but subcontractors could be overseas, or anybody for that matter, as long as it's not in the countries that are considered those that we don't want to work with, that the United States doesn't do business with at the moment. But otherwise, you can have subcontractors from anywhere, including government agencies. So there's, for example, the department, the Air Force has different contract vehicles. You can sign up and utilize their facilities. We can let you know how to do that as well. For example, if you don't have the right equipment to do what you need to do in order to do your research, you can collaborate with the military in that regard, and utilizing their facilities through different contract vehicles. That is one way. Then there's, of course, institutions, nonprofits, universities. So anything on the academic side for research, is important that you partner up with a research institution, and we have means to do that as well if you need assistance there. So establish collaborations early is important for any larger grant such as this one. And here, just sort of a quick rundown of some of which we have already discussed in terms of what we can provide, what kind of value we can provide. Down below, just some quick summary for Samira and myself in terms of our background. But up here, you can see that we've We're backed by 50 plus years of combined experience in grants and leadership and entrepreneurship. We also deliver tailored strategies to align your projects to certain grants out there. So in other words, if we go beyond this CHIPS Act, which again, I highly encourage you to apply to, because it's a once in a lifetime, but for other grants, so we can take your technology, take a look. There's 11 granting agencies out there that I mentioned earlier that have all kinds of different grants that are out there. And so your technology might, if it might not fit for this CHIPS Act, it might be suitable for some of the other grants that are still out there. And even though the government is still closed at the moment, of course, we're all hopeful that it'll open up soon in the next several weeks here. But the grants will not go away. They'll just be shifting the funds. A lot of it will go to the DoD, and so there'll be more funds available at the DoD. We provide an end-to-end approach, transforming complex requirements into compelling narratives to create our proposals. We work with a plethora of grant writers. So we have an on staff of full-time writers, such as Samira, and lots and lots of part-time writers as well, most of which have PhDs in the area of expertise. It's very important that when we write proposals, the writer is very familiar with the technology, because that's the key. I mean, it's one thing to be able to write, of course, this day and age, very important to bring across the message just the right way, so that the reviewers who can range the gamut from being experts in their field to just sort of have a cursory understanding of the technology, they all need to be impressed by the technology. And so we write with that in mind, but of course they need to be have some technology expertise. And I think that's about it in terms of what I wanted to talk about here. So if you are interested in learning more about a company, please feel free to, to reach out to us in this regard. There's our email addresses again, and you can also schedule a time with, I see it in the chat right now. There is some, for Robert, there's a link for his calendar, I think. Let's see, do we have any questions? Let's see. Josiah, if you see any questions, I don't see anything other than the webinar chat. So if there are any other questions anywhere, let us know. And again, you can also reach out afterwards per email to us. You can put your email into the chat if you like, and we'll reach out and we'll get you the slide deck here, and as well as some more information if you're interested.
I see somebody raised a hand, but if you could please type it in the Q&A, we can answer your question. Kevin Drum, I see you raised a hand.
It's typing.
Christian, can you go to the slide which shows the areas of interest? Thank you.
Yep.
So these are the 6 topics, topic areas of interest, and it could be broadly within any of these. And you could also do cross-cutting applications and technologies. You don't have to, select one particular topic. As long as it aligns with 1 or 2, that's good enough.
And there was a question from Eric, I believe. How long does it take? Applications take anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks, depending on how long they are, how detailed they are. Could take up to 16 weeks. The white paper will not take that long. So the white paper that's only 5 pages would only take about, give or take 2 to 3 weeks, because we would need to collect information, but you just writing the paper yourself is rather quick. 5 pages is done in no time. So technically you can write it in a week and submit, but you want to take your time for this one. You can resubmit if you don't win it. So that's the beauty of it, and you can make it better and continue that way.
And somebody asked, is it a 10 million minimum? Yes, there is. It is a 10 million minimum. And is there an optimum and a maximum? No, there is no optimum and maximum, but the way it should be is that it should be realistic of what you need and what can be achieved. And for anything above a certain number, you will have to get quotes and you'll have to give a proper budget and budget justification. So you'll have to break down what your costs are, where would you be spending it, what the salaries are, what your indirect costs are, materials, equipment, all of these need to be accounted for. So there is no particular minimum or no particular maximum as long as you're able to justify the objectives versus what your needs are. Yes.
Somebody else asking?
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead, Samir.
We can share the project program announcement. We can add it to the slides, right, Christian? We can just add the link to the program solicitation and send the slides out before sending them out.
Correct. Yeah. Somebody else asked about when the white papers are due. They're due at any time. So that's the beauty. You can apply it at any time. They get reviewed ad hoc. So when they come in, assuming the government is open, they will get reviewed, and then you can get your feedback fairly quickly and then reapply if they get rejected. But they're open until 2029. But I wouldn't wait that long, because once they run out of funds, they'll close this out. Okay, give it another minute here, and then I'll have to hop.
Christian, this is a question that you could answer. Do you have technical folks with security clearances to review applications that might get into that discussion? And does this BA allow for classified information? So I can answer the second half. So yes, the BA will allow for classified information. And whenever you put in classified information, you would have to mention saying that this particular proposal or these pages have classified information, and that they would not be shared outside of the reviewers and outside of the department. So there's an allowance to mention that in your application. And the first half, Christian, do you have technical folks with security clearances?
We don't have currently any writers with technical or with security clearances on staff.
But everything you share with us is absolutely confidential. We wouldn't share it with anybody else because we sign the contract with you guys, so we wouldn't share it with anybody. So is the program focused on funding actual products and commercialization, not just R&D? Broadly, you can use funds for commercialization, but it has to have an R&D element to it. Can we understand eligibility for this grant application? Yes, the full application instructions and eligibility, everything is in the website. Apart from the general eligibility that we already discussed, the full application requirements, eligibility requirements are in the website. If you go to the website, you can download all of the templates and applications. And again, if you sign up with us, we will help you with all of those and discuss in depth with you. Christian, this one's for you. Is the concept of giving the government equity novel? I haven't heard of that before.
It's not used very commonly. Every now and then we see it in larger proposals such as this one. But for smaller grants, no, it's not common at all. But again, it's using the right kind of grant that will, or rather the contract vehicle that will allow you to negotiate that. So that's part of the contract negotiations. When you get the award, that's the time when you then negotiate that hopefully to your advantage. But yeah, that's a requirement for this one, which is usually not the case. All right, I'll have to call it here. I have another meeting to attend to. Feel free to leave this up for a little while longer, and you can again send us emails. We'll record the messages that you've sent in the question and answers. So we'll make sure that we'll get back to you if we haven't gotten back to you, and either include that in our presentation as an addendum or reach out to you directly. Again, thank you so much for your time, and I hope to hear from you in one way or another. So thanks so much.